Run a Google search on Led Zeppelin Oakland 1977 and you'll realize they're some of the most photographed shows of their career. But look deeper and the tune will come to you at last. A disturbing story lies behind their last ever concerts in America. Violence, excess, and a strange full circle in California. The United States of America was without question their biggest market. American fans were loyal and made them rich. A music bond that lasted for 8 years and 290 concerts. The way it all came to an end remains tragic. How fragile the mighty enterprise was at the hands of human nature, sometimes its worst enemy. A mammoth and triumphant concert tour cut short. It had been the return of the Kings, next to the King himself, as the two hottest life tickets that fate removed them both from America. There's no happy ending to this dark chapter in Zeppelin history that the surviving members have rarely discussed, if any. A place where time stopped for the greatest rock band of the 70s. A story that fuels endless gossip, theories, and polarizing statements. And you won't believe the ramifications of a single incident that could have been avoided and played a big role into the unthinkable, the end of an era. Now a quick trivia before we begin. Two of the greatest bands in rock history played their final US concerts in the same bay, in front of each other. The Beatles in 1966 and Led Zeppelin in 1977. This is the making of Oakland 77. It's Thursday, July 21st, 1977. A full-page BMW ad on a luxury vehicle that offered more than the mere illusion of high performance. It was the same for our 70s rock and roll kings. All the theatrics, outfits, and smoke machines were backed up by real musicianship. They were not perfect, but always delivered. Led Zeppelin played a July 20th show in Arizona and headed out to San Francisco's Hilton Hotel for precious time off before their scheduled weekend run at Oakland's Alameda County Coliseum. The band was now on the third leg of their massive North American tour, and the more you look at the stats, they could have wrapped it up back in June after 40 concerts, with an average duration time 3 hours. Their journey had started in April, and by now, it felt like an odyssey of adulation, chemicals, and rising tension within their staff. A tiny explosion could blow the whole thing up. They covered most of the United States and had nothing to prove, but it was a business after all. The fact they did multiple nights at many venues made offers inevitable. New dates came knocking at their door. Bigger venues, more money, high stakes gone higher, excess turned excessive. A third leg series of dates was rumored in early May, just weeks before Led Zeppelin came back to the States for the second part of the tour. Oakland were among the cities journalist Lisa Robinson mentioned on the papers. Quote, "If Zepp did all the proposed summer dates, it would bring the total of stadium shows to 8, more of this type than they've ever done here before." And she was right. It felt like the beginning of outdoor festival type logistics, something neither the organization nor their manager was an expert in. Lisa's story ran in publications across the country. The word "expanded" was a song of hope for hyperventilating ticket buyers. A promise that maybe, just maybe, their evening with Zeppelin was still within reach. Swan Song Records put out a press release on May 17th confirming the rumors, and California was happy. Oakland Coliseum would host 2 shows. Now the coming itinerary July through August was strange and challenged the roadies. 4 gigs in the west and then opposite direction. A July 2nd Napa Valley article talked about Zeppelin's Oakland Coliseum shows with an alleged support band spot by Journey. They spread rumors that prices could be as high as $20. And then came the great news. Tickets for Led Zeppelin's return to the Bay Area went out on sale on July 5th. That's 115,000 hungry fans at an average price of $11.50 for $1.3 million that made local promoter Bill Graham very happy. A familiar face to Led Zeppelin, he ran the Fillmore West Club where the band shook the city back in January 1969. Unlike most bands he worked with, who kneeled to his rules and percentages, Zeppelin were Atlantic Records' golden child, now turned Swan Song Enterprises, with Peter Grant the protective father who would kill for them if necessary. The more you connect the dots, the more you realize Bill Graham was not a close friend to the group, but a business partner who had to give fans what they wanted while taking a big cut on his earnings. He couldn't enforce his tight promoter grip on them. The San Francisco Examiner had a July 8th promotion to win 6 seats for the upcoming Oakland shows. Page 24 confirmed all tickets for the first date were sold out, with just a handful remaining for the second. The hype was real, and if one of the lucky winners is watching this documentary, I salute you for sending your envelope to the Examiner's P.O. Box. News reports on July 10th talked about the Bay Area Computerized Ticketing Network, or BOSS, basically a predecessor to Ticketmaster. They avoided heavy lines by running a smooth operation, working in advance, away from nasty riots like early 1977 ones in many American cities, including Dallas, where police units had to be called in to handle angry crowds. Promoter Bill Graham supplied the Bay Area operation with extra private security guards to keep things cool. As a side note, check out the concert agenda at the Palms, with future Cal Jam 1978 rising stars Rubicon. What a great band. The San Francisco Examiner ran a full-page ad for the Midsummer Music Festival showcasing all of Graham's events all through August, an action-packed agenda that kept fans going for the one. A July 15th Oakland Tribune article confirmed both shows were sold out, 2 days and 6 hours of music gone in just 10 days. This included a quote by songwriter Joan Baez. How come they sell 84,000 tickets in 24 hours? I asked a friend what they do and was told, you know what it sounds like when 2 cars pile into each other? Kabloom. Well, the Zeppelin sounds like that for 3 hours. Scalpers were quick to make a profit, charging as high as $30 and $40 per ticket. Back at San Francisco's Hilton Hotel, it was a place for Page, Plant Jones, and Bonham to relax and dive in the pool, despite maximum temperatures of 62 Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. Not cold but not hot either. There had been mixed reviews for Led Zeppelin's most recent Seattle and Arizona concerts, from bad venue acoustics to shaky performance spots, plus specific health concerns over some bandmates. Overall, it felt like the third leg of the tour was just an open door for calamity. I recommend you check both my concert retrospectives for context and music analysis. Now, the tour's sole open-air show in June didn't help the stats either. Tampa was cut short due to a deadly thunderstorm and violent police intervention. Maybe the band was destined for indoor trails only. Oakland Coliseum awaited them just on the other side of the confounded bridge. Heavy rumors for Day on the Green 6 and 7 stated Led Zeppelin would use 2 supporting bands, yet to be confirmed. The Day on the Green Festival was now in its 5th year of operations, and this is how Bill Graham built it. After closing the Fillmore venues for good in 1971, he embarked into the highly competitive and lucrative open-air concert business of renting out locations. Names like Wolf and Rismitter were building a strong partnership with Anaheim Stadium, leaving Graham running out of options for his vision. He found a spot in 1973 for the Dancing on the Outdoor Green Festival, with 2 shows at San Francisco's Kezar Stadium, May 26th and June 2nd. Led Zeppelin arrived a bit late past their scheduled time, and Graham wasn't happy to say the least, but it helped his business move forward. Add in Glenn Watkins in July 73, where Bill provided gear and his famous tent. Money kept coming in. He expanded and repackaged his idea for Ontario's Motor Speedway some 8 months before CalGem 1, and then he moved the same artist Bill to Oakland's Alameda County Coliseum for an August 5th, 1973 show with no stage nor roof, just musicians under the hot California sun. This kickstarted the idea of hosting many editions of the festival at the same venue. Construction for Oakland's Coliseum began in 1964 following a trend in other American cities. Design-wise, the site followed the larger-than-life status of previous RKF, Shea, Atlanta's Fulton County, and Missouri's own Bush Memorial Stadium. Oakland opened its doors in 1966, home to both Athletics and Raiders, but the football configuration was strange from the start as the field had to be slightly chopped to fit the dimensions. And then there was the Coliseum itself, built like a crater. The playing field sat over 20 feet below sea level, so when fans arrived, they were already looking down at the action. A massive man-made hill surrounds the structure, and from the outside, only the third deck pokes above the rim. The rest buried in concrete and California dirt. In came 1974, and Bill Graham's Day on the Green 1 and 2 had its first posters carrying the name. Headliners plus supporting acts Grateful Dead and Beach Boys on June 8th, followed by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young on July 13th, plus a second show by popular demand the next day. Their 2014 live album cover was shot at Oakland. Photographs of the venue made artists look like superheroes, and so the Coliseum's word-of-mouth publicity grew along with an improved stage design. Oakland became the rite of passage for big rock and roll business. Note, Bill Graham didn't number Day on the Green shows sequentially across the years. Instead, he'd reset the count at the start of each summer. 1975 was next, with Chicago and the Beach Boys on May 24th, the Doobie Brothers and the Eagles on June 29th, plus an artist-packed bill British Invasion edition in early August. The 4th and 5th Day on the Green events were scheduled for August 23rd and 24th, with Led Zeppelin as headliner, plus Joe Walsh and Swan Song label artist The Pretty Things. But Robert Plant's car accident changed the course of events, and these were cancelled. Bay Area audiences were saddened to say the least, and it was reported to be the largest refund for a rock concert in the United States. Bill Graham must have been frustrated. He probably lost a lot of money in venue booking and logistic fees. It was a huge loss for the concert business, but the show must go on, and it did, with a 6th event made of both winners and rising stars, Leonard Skinner. 1976 began with 2 dates in April and May featuring Peter Frampton and Fleetwood Mac plus supporting bands. Day on the Green 3 and 4 took place in early June, with 11 bands catering to different genres, including local heroes Tower of Power, Journey, and Santana. This was just like the Fillmore West days, but on a bigger venue, same concept, same principle. Number 5 on July 2nd, with the Beach Boys followed by the Eagles and Loggins and Messina on their last on-stage performance on August 3rd. Day on the Green 7 was to be August 18th, with Jethro Tull, ELO, Rory Gallagher, and underrated giants Camel, but low ticket sales moved it to the neighbor venue, Oakland Arena. Actual festivals 7 and 8 went to a money-making double bill, The Who and the Grateful Dead, selling out 2 days October 9th and 10th. And then came 1977, one of the busiest concert years in the United States and one of the most exciting for record label profits. Day on the Green number 1 had Fleetwood Mac as headliner. The Mac were in full rumor spirits, and the photographs confirmed the hype was real. Players only love you when they're playing, and fans celebrated every minute. Day on the Green 2 and 3 followed on May 28th and 30th, with headliners the Eagles, now on their 3rd visit, cashing in the success of Hotel California, peaking at number 1 on Billboard. They were joined by Fly Like an Eagle hitmaker Steve Miller, plus supporting by Heart and a little upcoming band, Foreigner. The 4th and 5th shows remain extra special because of precious video footage that exists. July 2nd and 4th, 1977. America's favorite pop rock superstar, Peter Frampton, Southern rock legends Leonard Skinner, Comeback Mode Santana with Festival Thunder, and support by the Outlaws. These shots are timeless music capsules of electrifying sets and brave audience members enduring California sunlight, all in the name of rock and roll, and maybe getting married in a few years, having a few kids, and a affording a house in the era of possible before their future was sold for the benefit of few.
And sir,
Oscar Mayer.
Oh, no. You get in trouble for that.
More people eat it than more like it.
they really are good. Love them.
The Zeppelin Stay on the Green 6 and 7 were scheduled for July 23rd and 24th. A concert poster was designed by the team of Randy Tootin and William Bosted, whose work can be seen on Pink Floyd's May 1977 promotional materials. The clouds here somehow remind me of the Endless River. Anyway, Tootin had a long list of credits for Bill Graham shows, including early day Zeppelin visuals, like the famous Avocado poster. The latest artwork had a Zeppelin-shaped dark mothership arriving at a brutalist architectural space. It looked like a futuristic take on Zeppelin II's gatefold. With the decade almost closing in, it was a fitting choice, but at the same time, a metaphor for the dark cloud over the band's activities. Their staff included questionable choices like security man John Binden, with a reputation for being quite a savage and violent character. He knew the streets very well, and this picture with Princess Margaret only fueled speculation into the Binden enigma. Some Zeppelin bandmates didn't like him, and he was not the best consigliere for Peter Grant, who grew paranoid over money, power, and 70s lifestyle choices. Peter tried to handle the new set of expectations the band was heading into with these huge arenas. Word was out on two supporting acts for Zeppelin's visit, Rick Derringer and Judas Priest. American guitarist Rick Derringer used to be a member of the McCoys of Hang On Sloopy fame. He produced the Edgar Winter's Group 1972 record that featured Frankenstein. One of his own compositions, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, was recorded by both Winter brothers before he recorded his own version for All American Boy. That single and album ranked up Billboard's charts, but his follow-up, Spring Fever, tanked, thus he never got enough solo artist traction despite his unquestionable talent. He decided to put a band together, Derringer, and released her self-titled debut in '76, followed by Sweet Evil in February of '77. Both records didn't chart well, despite them being a tight collection of great mixing and attention to detail. Rick seemed to have it all, and these albums are sonic proof of his vision that preceded many American bands that followed. It was bad luck for Derringer that Boston's success made critics think he was a second-rate clone when Rick had this sound design first. By the time Derringer flew to Oakland, the band was 34 shows into their 1977 tour, boosted by their March live album release, capturing their on-stage brilliance. They were a supporting band for different names on the circuit, but none of them compared to the great responsibility of opening for Led Zeppelin. Judas Priest had signed to CBS Records in the UK after a couple of albums that didn't chart in the States at all, but showed great potential. Sin After Sin was released in April 1977 with producer, former Deep Purple bassist at the time, Roger Glover. The label put them on a UK supporting tour April through May, before playing the US June through July, opening for bands like REO Speedwagon. They experienced a big American festival at Super Jam 77 held at Busch Stadium, St. Louis. While they weren't headlining, their support slots were carefully chosen, and Priest was willing to grind it out to build word-of-mouth publicity. Rob Halford later joked that some audiences didn't know what to make of them, but their raw power often won people over. They played a Palladium New York date before heading out to California. There's an available online bootleg of their short but explosive set, thanks to the powerhouse drumming of Les Binks.
Your happy days.
They call me Jaws.
No matter what size you buy, you can make...
There it is!
Get a coupon, good for one free.
Friday, July 22nd. There's two sides to the story here. Peter Grant claimed on Bringing It Home that promoter Bill Graham asked them if they could play on Friday for a 3-day run, which they refused. Grant said this didn't sit well with Bill. Now, Graham said in his 1992 book that the band asked him for a $25,000 cash advance. He went to the Hilton Hotel and realized the money was not for room service, but 70s chemicals. It's hard for me to believe Graham had never been in this situation before with rock and roll musicians. Also, if the band that sold $1.3 million in ticket sales asked for a cash advance, why not? There seemed to be bad blood before the show, almost as if they were looking for a reason to have a disagreement. Saturday, July 23rd. It'd been 6 years and 10 months since Led Zeppelin played Oakland back in September 1970 at the Indoor Arena. Now, 7 studio albums, 1 movie, and 1 soundtrack later, they were the biggest rock stars in the world. The entourage proceeded to wake the band up and get the limos ready for their destination, just like the Tower of Power record back in Oakland. It was a 30-minute drive for a scheduled concert start 2 p.m. past the supporting acts. Years before the Spinal Tap Stonehenge gag, Bill Graham Productions designed a custom stage. They went for a similar Zeppelin-shaped figure, just like the concert poster, but stepped up their game with a Stonehenge theme and warm-toned backdrops. Fortunately, they didn't write the dimensions on a napkin, but hired a team of professionals. Besides the stone structures, there was an orange fabric with the sun taking center stage, an eerie nod to flying too close to the sun, and as we'll see later in the story, like Icarus, it would be followed by a fall from grace. A unusual choice, as Led Zeppelin had never played a show with such props, and was a window into what the future could be for them had they embarked on the massive festival route in the 80s. It's also a strange tie to the 1990 remasters box set and the famous crop circles, which appeared near Stonehenge. Led Zeppelin arrived at the stadium and walked through the southwest loading bay tunnel entrance. Jimmy's guitars awaited inside, his 1977 lineup in full display. 2 Martin acoustics, 3 Les Pauls including his metallic red No. 3, the Dan Electro for White Summer in Kashmir, the still maple neck Botswana Telecaster for 10 Years Gone, and the mighty EDS 1275 for opening numbers and Stairway. Wardrobe choices for that day had Robert Plant in his now famous Nurses Do It Better shirt, with 1977 stories of tour girlfriends and a man who drew most of the female attention, nothing like a sexy innuendo to maintain his frontman persona. Jimmy Page put on his iconic dragon suit for only the 3rd time on tour, past Capitol Center on May 28th and the LA Forum on June 22nd. This would be the outfit's final live appearance for a total of 8 since Earl's Court 1975. John Bonham was in good spirits, choosing his custom 1977 tracksuit tailor-made for all band members and staff. It was one of the tour's official wardrobe, a fitting color style for this penultimate show in America: red, white, and blue. John Paul Jones wore a crazy white long sleeve with a printed jacket and shirt, and later put the tracksuit on, as temperatures that day reached a maximum 64 Fahrenheit or 17 degrees Celsius. They were ready for showtime, the 43rd concert of the tour, a highly anticipated event trying to answer the many questions around the band's ability to face the angels and demons of open-air shows. You can spot Bill Graham and Peter Grant here, and then both men walking to the stage. Little did they know, they'd become mortal enemies in just 3 hours. At the gates of fate, the gates of delirium, 2 businessmen about to change the course of Led Zeppelin forever. For now, we'll step away from the drama and relive the music. Here's a song-by-song look at Led Zeppelin's July 23rd performance. Then, on episode 2, we'll head backstage, where everything went to hell.
guess I must personally apologise for a 2-year delay. But it's very nice to be here and to be back. We must have a short break while Jimmy puts a belt on his trousers because he's losing his pants. That would be one of the worst things to happen. It's just one of the formalities of getting dressed in the morning. So this is what they call daylight. Blues for a summer day. the inopportune happening that made it impossible for us to come here, right? And when things started getting better, we sat down at rehearsals and we looked through all the material that we had to avoid in the past. And so John Paul Jones put his hand in his pocket and bought a three-neck acoustic instrument that allows him to show his versatility a little more. And we were able to look at things that we perhaps weren't otherwise able to do. This is one of them from Physical Graffiti. going afterwards?